always thought if you worked hard enough at something and wanted it bad enough and passionate enough about it, it'll come through. And I honestly don't think they give a shit, to be honest. So they don't. They see it's such a small industry.
Are you actually running out of money?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
We're at your distillery now. Have you done like an Elon Musk where you sleep in your distillery and you've stayed here overnight during like a hard time? Or when you really need to like pump out some whiskey barrels?
No, not involuntarily. I have passed out here.
Voluntarily?
Yeah, well...
That doesn't sound voluntary.
Yeah, look, a few too many whiskeys. I've had my swag here and stayed overnight.
Have you ever thought about implementing like a dry office just to be like, guys, we're out of control. We need to calm down.
Look, certainly early on in the piece, you do get pretty carried away. There's a lot of alcohol around, but I can assure you that it's not sustainable to be a
I know, because I feel
heavy
like
drinker in a whiskey distillery.
How do you even screen like future employees? Because you'd be like, hey, do you have an alcohol problem? Maybe this isn't the place. That could be a legit question, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, you have to like whiskey, right? You have to appreciate it. But we certainly don't want to condone that kind of behaviour in our place. It's all about enjoying it and enjoying our whiskey in good company, not getting too carried away.
I did some research on you, obviously like a good journo should.
Yep.
And I saw that your highest whiskey, like strongest whiskey, I think it's at 63%.
Yep.
But legally in Australia, the highest or strongest whiskey or any alcoholic drink that you can have, I think it's 96.1. I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you can purchase that kind of spirit. You certainly don't want to be drinking it. It would hurt. It would burn all the way down. So yeah.
I did wonder. I was like, why don't you just go? Could you go nuts and just create like an ultra strong whiskey, or is that just lethal and dumb?
Yeah, look. In all seriousness, it just wouldn't taste good. Basically, it tastes like it would just taste like rocket fuel. So yeah, that's where finding that balance of where the percentage sits and the delicacy of the whiskey is quite important. So wouldn't happen.
We're like surrounded by a lot of whiskey barrels. I think one of your oldest whiskies is 9 years old, or that's available on your website, the one that I've seen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 9 years old. Yeah, we released that last year. It was part of our 10-year anniversary, which is pretty cool. To celebrate that, we released a 9-year-old whiskey. Yeah. Doesn't make sense that it's 9 years and we're celebrating 10, but hey, that's takes longer for whiskey to mature than the actual business has been open. So
it is actually 9 years old, right? It's not like a marketing ploy.
No, it's actually 9 years. So the barrels that you see behind me, it's been sitting in those barrels in this very warm, dry warehouse for 9 years. And unfortunately, we don't do a lot of that here, especially in Australia, and particularly in Perth, because of the really, really warm climate that we have. So we get a lot of evaporation, so it's just not economical to leave a whiskey in there. But the cool thing about our warm climate that we have here in Perth is, a whiskey matures, 1 year here is equivalent to about 4.5 years maturation time in Scotland. So, a 2-year-old whiskey here is equivalent to a 9-year-old whiskey in Scotland.
Oh, so could you then basically be like, hey, it's basically 100 years old, but it's only been sitting here for 25 years?
I wish I could say that, yeah.
Hey,
we could market it that way, but...
the ACCC might have a problem with that.
Well, there's no rules against it, but I guess... Yeah. Our brand is all about integrity, so
True.
I don't want to mislead consumers too much.
One of the biggest things I've noticed, like on all your whiskey barrels, there is looks like a old plane, maybe like a bomber or something, but there is a connection, right? They not steal a recipe, but didn't a World War II pilot help you with your recipe? How does that work?
Yeah, look, there's a long story there. So the Lancaster bomber that you do see on on the barrels there for a proper reason. It's not just there because we liked the look of a couple of barrels sitting underneath a
But
bomber
it does
plane.
look cool.
It does certainly look cool. That's probably more the creative side and the part of me enjoying that. But also it was a tribute to a guy called Vic Tanger who flew Lancasters during the war. He's a West Australian. And he actually grew up next door to my business partner and my brother-in-law, Alistair. And Alistair growing up, as a young fella, used to jump the fence and hang out with Vic, and Vic used to do a bit of homebrew in his backyard. So the inspiration for Alistair to start drinking whiskey came from his neighbour Vic.
Right.
And Vic had a recipe. It's not the recipe that we use here today, but it is certainly inspired, like our upshot recipe is inspired by Vic and his mates that made a bit of homebrew. But the original recipe that we have here that started the journey with our first whiskey upshot actually came from America, from a guy called Tom Cooper. And Tom's actual grandfather also flew bombers during the war as well. So there's a bit of connection.
So there's like a deep connection between like you and World War II pilots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, even Alistair's grandfather flew for the New Zealand Air Force as well. Flew bombers for the New Zealand Air Force, which is pretty cool.
But because when I was doing research like on you, I was like, oh, who's Jimmy? Like, why is he so successful? I keep seeing Tom Cooper. Is that right? He's like your. Was it Tom Cooper?
Tom Cooper, yeah. So he's my mentor.
He's like your like whiskey sensei or something.
He perfect. That's the perfect way to put it. He is. He definitely inspired me to give it a go, and Alistair as well. And we learnt everything what not to do from Tom. Basically, it saves us a lot of time, a lot of money. But he was in construction for most of his life. When he retired, he built his first distillery, but had been making whiskey all his life. So I think from a small business perspective, he was an important mentor, not just from the whiskey side, but also from running a small craft boutique, production facility. But it's a completely different environment in the US. And when we came to Australia, when he came out to Australia to help us here in Perth, it was a completely different environment as well.
Right.
And operating here is going to be much more difficult. It's harder to raise capital. Climate's obviously very different to Colorado as well. So
because it sounds like, how important do you reckon Tom Cooper, your whiskey sensei, was for you when you started in 2014? I think it was. Like, what did you know about whiskey? How do you go from like being like, hey, let's start a whiskey distillery? No one's born like in the public school system. There's not like a paper on like, and this is how you make moonshine or what,
Yeah.
So was it really important?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what did I know about making whiskey? I knew how to drink it, most importantly. I had a taste for it. I had a passion for it. I remember flying over to the US.
Like an alcoholic.
Yeah, I was certainly not. Well, yeah, some might say no, I wasn't. My first introduction to how to make whiskey was reading a book on the flight over to the US to meet Tom. So I started to
because it's
research.
a long flight, so you would have been like, I'll just read anything.
Yeah, I was reading all these textbooks and starting to learn how to make whiskey. And most of my learning come from visiting and experiencing and meeting different people, and then just mixing that with my background as well, and just building all this technical knowledge. But I think one thing you need to be able to understand with when you make whiskey, not only you need to be passionate about it and love it. The science part of it is fairly straightforward, and there's a lot to learn there. And I thrive in that space as well. But it's also learning the art of making whiskey, and that's where Tom came in, because the art of making whiskey needs to be passed down. And combining those two things, that's when you're going to actually create great whiskey.
What do you reckon the art is? Because if you sent me like a recipe and you said like, hey, go find some corn or quinoa and make some whiskey, I would be like, okay, cool, I can follow a recipe. Like I've made banana cake before.
Yep.
Obviously very different. What is the art? What's that? Are you just vibing out? Like, could you describe what the art is?
Yeah, understanding the nuances of new make, understanding the nuances of different ferments, and then understanding, I guess, profiles and taste profiles and how that all combines to create a whiskey. Because when you think about a whiskey, it's a completely natural process, and we're combining brewing techniques with distillation techniques with maturation techniques. But then you need to get that to all meld in together perfectly to create that end product. And there's no recipe book or a science book that's going to tell you how to do that. And that's where the art of it comes into it.
I feel like obviously you know a lot about whiskey. Does it, when like you live and breathe something and it just bleeds into every conversation ever? Do you ever, do your parents or your friends ever tell you off and be like, stop talking about whiskey, Jimmy? Are you just constantly whiskey minded?
I think if you ask my partner now, every time we meet people, the first thing is tell me how you got into whiskey.
Really?
And
sorry for starting the podcast like this.
This podcast is perfect because I can just send them the link and just get back to small talk instead.
What?
Yeah, it's
over a coffee date, you're like, hey, here's a link, here's my QR code.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's like a business card. We can chat about the good stuff.
Yeah, all the info's there. Just listen to this. Yeah.
So to jump away from the science of whiskey, because some people might just be like, oh, it's over my head. And some people might not even know who you are. I'm new to Perth. I'm like, I don't know who Jimmy is. I've never been to Snapper Distillery, but it looks awesome. I might come here every day. What did you do before you started a whiskey distillery? I heard you were on a farm.
Yeah, so I worked on farms after school. Yeah. Did that. That was hard work. A lot of appreciation for farmers doing it tough out there.
Yeah.
I grew up in the country as well, so that kind of helped. And then I went into construction. Then I went into mining. And I ended up as a kind of a senior mine surveyor, digging holes in our backyard. So
digging holes, farming from a small town. Does that naturally lead itself to opening a whiskey distillery, or where did the idea come from? What was that light bulb moment where you're like, I can't stop drinking whiskey, but I'm passionate about it. That's what you said in your own words. Yeah. How did you go from that to hey, let's do it. Let's open up a distillery.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever a light bulb moment. It was just a process of discovery over many years of learning things, but also understanding the things I didn't want to do in life.
Yeah.
So I was always exploring different opportunities, taking risks, which is an important thing, especially when you're a bit younger. Yeah. Trying things I didn't want to do, but learning a lot of skills and meeting a lot of people along the way. And I think when I got stuck into the mining industry, there was always something burning inside me that said that you could do more with your life instead of working for someone. You can create. Have always been a creative person, so I wanted to create something, build things with my hands. I liked whiskey. I didn't understand whiskey like I do now. I had a very, very shallow understanding of what whiskey was and what it tasted like. But there was nothing else like it in West Australia, especially what we eventually set out to do with the grain whiskies, so with corn whiskies. We wanted to do things a little bit differently, and it wasn't until travelled to the US with Alistair, and we started to meet other bourbon distillers or craft distillers, and even going to Scotland as well. The ball started to roll. It got quite exciting, and we both were like, "Oh hell yeah, we can make whiskey, and it should be fine. Everyone's going to want it. Everyone's going to want to give us money to do this. We had the dream." And I remember being up at the wet mess on mine sites doing little PowerPoint presentations for friends.
With Alistair? Oh.
No, just me, and Alice would do it through his networks. So I'll be on site after work, after dinner, and all the miners would be sitting around, and I'll be pitching to them, and they inspired me as well. People got around us and said, "Yeah, we believe in you, can do it," and I think that was maybe a false insecurity. So yeah, have a crack. Even our parents, our friends at the time were all behind us.
With that presentation, what were you saying? Were you like, "Hey guys, I'm going to make whiskey. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. You're going to love it so much it could even be a problem." Yeah. And then, are you wanting them to be to invest? Was it an investment pitch?
Yeah, it was something. Yeah, it was an investment.
Give
pitch
us your money
for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Not many people invested, but that's okay. There was the support that we got from people. And we did get a lot of investment from family and friends. The majority of it was family and friends in the early days.
Because how old were you? Because you seem young now, but then like you started in 2014, so that's 11 years ago.
Yeah, I think I was 24 or something like that. Yeah,
24.
24,
So you're
25,
24, and how much money did you have in your account?
$0, I think. Yeah.
But this is what breaks my brain. Is that I see, I don't know, like a successful entrepreneur like you, and you're like, oh, I was 24, had no money, but then you created that. In my head, I'm like, well, how'd you do that? Like,
Yeah. I mean,
did you sell, like, did you rob a bank?
begged and borrowed. Begged and borrowed, pretty much. And I think people did believe in the idea, and me and Alistair. And I think it also helped having our mentors, Tom, for instance, come over from the US. Because, I mean, they would look at us, me and our two young whippersnappers, and then go, well, I don't know, you guys have never run a business before. Yes, you're passionate, that's great, but we would want you to actually be able to pull through this.
Yeah.
And having Tom there and that support, I think, gave a little bit of confidence to people.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of it, once we got a bit of money, we got this place that we're sitting in now, you've signed a lease, you've got to pay bills, you've got an expectation to your friends now that you're going to make it and make it work, then everything's on the line and you just don't look back, you just push forward.
Were you ever stressed about that? The pressure of being like, I've signed a lease, people are expecting it to go well, I've spoken to my whiskey sensei, and he's like, you can do it. Were you like, I'm confident, or did you feel like pressure?
Extremely confident.
Oh, okay.
I think being young and naive helps.
Yes.
Very confident that we could do it. You know, especially in the whiskey side of things, we knew we could produce good whiskey. We've got access to some of the best grains in the world right here in our backyard. All our friends grow our grains for us here. We had all the support network we needed. We had some good people working in the business with us as well, friends of ours. They all brought a different skill set that we were lacking. You know, I've always been open to that as well. I know my limitations. Who can help me out here? And we'd always bring good people into the business. So always very confident.
It sounds like you kind of had this perfect storm where you had the passion, Alistair, you had your Tom Cooper who helped you. You maybe had some people who might have financed it. You had friends who could source ingredients from. Like, did you think of yourself as really lucky, or is there something where you're like, oh my God, like God is in this? Like, I don't know if you're religious at all, but you know, like, yeah, how did you think about that? Were you just like, oh, I just caught a lucky break, or yeah?
I never thought we were lucky. I always thought that. I always thought if you worked hard enough at something and wanted it bad enough and passionate enough about it, it'll come through.
And it did.
It was definitely no luck involved in it. We've had a lot of bad luck, to be honest, but it's all learning experience. So I never took it as like, okay, we're failures because this didn't work out, or in 2016 this happened, or whatever. It has always been a learning experience, and you just get up and keep pushing because there's no turning back. You want to make it work, and not just for us personally and our shareholders and our friends, but for the wider WA public as well. Such a special operation we have here, and the whiskey we produce is awesome.
You said that you've had some bad luck. What was probably the worst luck that you've had since owning it?
Running out of money.
Oh, you actually ran out of money?
All the time. All the time. I mean, making whiskey, it eats its head off in capital. Your money's just going into production, but you're not seeing that return for minimum 2 years. Because that's how long it takes to mature. So we're always running out of money. Yeah.
But it seems really successful. So like, if you walked in here, but like, this guy's got it all. Like, each barrel must be worth. How much is each barrel worth? Are we allowed to know? Oh,
look, the standard barrel's probably 25 grand maybe.
Oh, no wonder you wheeled over a barrel and were like, I'll touch this. You're touching $20,000. Have you, okay, so you ran out of money a few times. How'd you bounce back? And like how'd you do it? Even emotionally, how'd you recover from that?
Yeah, you just have to diversify, look for different means, cut costs, beg and borrow again. It's a tough business to get right. There's not many of us in Australia. It's pioneering in a sense. You know, it would have been easier to make beer or do something else, but we decided on whiskey and had to wait 2 to 4 years for a product to be ready. So, but you know, the cool thing is now that the brand's known as a whiskey distillery. That's what we're passionate about. So we just chose what we do.
Yeah, you said that you're pioneering something new, which you are. You're like you're Perth's first whiskey distillery. But in my head, whiskey's such an old drink. You know, when I think of whiskey, I think of someone from the 1800s drinking it in like their, I don't know, horse and cart or whatever. But is it kind of a new industry?
It is in Australia. Australia's, I guess, craft whiskey industry is quite young.
Yeah.
Back probably 100 years ago, there was a whiskey industry in Australia, but completely different quality back then. It didn't really kick off until the mid-90s when we saw Tasmania open up a small distillery over there, and it started to pick up. But still to this day, we are a very small footprint. And whiskey, you know, in our culture in Australia is such a niche, really. We do love drinking whiskey, but most of it's imported whiskey. So us trying to compete with the big guys in America and Scotland is difficult. So, and the styles of whiskey that we're producing, particularly here at Whippersnapper, is different to everyone else in the country.
Oh, okay. So on that, I have, because you said you were creative, so that makes sense. You're creative with your whiskies. Like you have the world's best corn whiskey. You created Australia's first quinoa whiskey. In my head, I'm like, I didn't realize you're even allowed to do that. You know what I mean? Like the cops might be like, stop, that's illegal. You can't merge those together. But I wanted to throw 3 innovative whiskey ideas at you, just as like a game, right? I just wanted you to tell me if you would make it or not. Okay, so the first one is a protein whiskey.
Yeah.
Can you make it?
It'd be difficult.
Because, you know, when you
But
walk in the
yes,
supermarket, everything's protein now.
Yeah.
It's like you go yogurt, protein. Muesli bars, protein. Apples, high in protein.
Maybe we could call it the shredded. So you're getting shredded.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
So
like-
a fat loss one.
I'm like half joking, but half like... Because people are so into fitness that they would come here and be like, oh, a whiskey protein. Yeah, actually, maybe I would.
Well, that's what we thought quinoa would be a good kicker. You know, high protein.
Oh, it is high in protein.
Very,
So
very high
basically-
protein. Yeah.
I'm an idiot. Okay, next one. What was my next one? Oh, yeah. Okay, the next one. A matcha whiskey.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. So like a real trendy.
Yeah, because it's like matcha lattes, like green coffee lattes, but just a matcha. I think you can make it with green tea leaves, right? Is
Yep.
that absurd?
Yes. I don't think we'd go down that path.
That's the nicest way of saying that's the dumbest idea I've heard.
But definitely doable.
Okay,
Yeah.
last one, and this is borderline stupid, but I imagine you get lots of customers come in here and they want to have whiskies to drink. But you know when people come in here, because you have a cafe, they'll come in and they'll be like, oh, I've got my kid, can we get a baby chino? Have you thought about a whiskey scotch? A baby scotch?
Like a baby cocktail or something.
Yeah. But it looks like a whiskey. Obviously, there's no alcohol in it.
Yep.
And it's just for the kids. It's like, hey, come, mum and dad are going to have a whiskey and you can have your whiskey, like your little baby scotch.
I love that idea.
Actually.
I'm not sure what racing, gaming, and liquor would think about that, encouraging alcohol at that age. I mean, we do have water bowls for the dogs here that say dog whiskey on the dog
that's
bowl.
cool. Yeah.
So the dog can feel, like it's part of the group as
the
well.
club. Yeah,
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
And put a bit of food colouring in the water, and it does look like whiskey.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in 10 years' time, if I see any of these, I'm going to chase you down and be like, I would like some royalties.
I just saw marketing department walk past, so I'll definitely talk about it after this. We'll suss it out.
Yeah. So you're probably so successful because you've been really innovative. But what do you reckon what's behind your success? Because you said you were confident, kind of lucky. Do you think what's behind Whippersnapper's success.
It's definitely the people that's involved in the business have been from the start. We pride ourselves on integrity and authenticity. So whether that's how we do our tours and masterclasses through here. So one thing we've done since we opened is let people in the door to see how everything's made. Yeah. There's no smoke and mirrors, right? You get to see how it's completely made. There's no hiding anything. But then there's also authenticity in the product as well, and integrity in the product. We tell it how it is. What's on the label is what we've done with whiskey. So, and just a solid team that just backs the brand and loves the whiskey as well. So
yeah, it's funny how that because that could sound like a PR. You know what I mean? It could sound like a really good media response. Like
Yep.
I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying it's like a good response. But it's true, right? Like it's just the pillars of we have good staff. They're not going to steal our $20,000 barrels and wheel them out somewhere.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, actually, I think there are a few gaps around here.
Yeah.
How competitive do you reckon the whiskey industry is? Because you're not the only whiskey distillery around. Do you guys... In my head, I have this kind of nice idea where maybe you guys Skype each other and you're like, what should we do next? Do you guys collaborate, or is it pretty aggressive?
Do you want the PR response or you want the...
I want the whiskey response.
No, to be honest, us in the Australian industries, we're pretty non-competitive because there's so much space, right? We compete really with all the imported stuff. So American whiskey, Scotch whiskey, Japanese whiskey, they're our big competitors because we can't produce whiskey at the same price as those guys. The other unfair thing is we get smashed with an Australian excise tax, which is just phenomenal. So when it comes to the consumer and it's over $100, we don't have economies of scale on our side, whereas imported stuff does. So while we're not competitive with our fellow distillers, there's heaps of space for us all to kind of thrive.
Does that mean that you and your fellow Australian distillers kind of feel like you have a common enemy? This kind of sounds a bit
100%.
brutal.
Yeah, we do. With the federal government on excise tax.
Have you seen any letters to the government being like, "Oi"?
Yeah, we've got a pretty good cool association that does a lot of advocating.
Okay, yeah.
But we need more. I mean, election time's coming up, so hopefully we can get some help there.
Yeah,
so.
you'd be wondering what their manifesto is on whiskey. Be like, "Oh, just relieve that tax and we'll vote for you."
Yeah, and I honestly don't think they give a shit, to be honest. So they don't. They see it as such a small industry.
They probably see you as and I could be way wrong here, but when I think of a whiskey distiller, I think of tattoos, beard, cigars, and almost this rebel. You know what I mean? Why would we support this rebel whiskey business that's almost... I don't know. Do you reckon the connotation has a bit of an edge to it that maybe isn't so marketable?
You're saying it's me, that my image is the problem. I'm not
saying that.
I need to be wearing a suit, I reckon. Yeah.
Change it. No, I just mean
get rid of the beard.
The whole culture and atmosphere of being in the whiskey world is awesome. It's cool. Yep. But I wonder if I don't know. I wonder if it's not so... If politicians can really be let's promote the whiskey world, because maybe people are just ignorant to it. They're like, oh.
I think it's just, we're too small.
Yeah.
It's not a big enough issue, and they're not going to get enough voters to put effort into it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
They see the tax revenue and they're like, oh, it's pretty healthy. Why would we want to change that? And support local businesses and local jobs and local farmers, because that would be stupid, right? To do all that. We as a whiskey distillery we could be much bigger. We could be employing more, but we don't just employ local people to work in the distillery. It also helps growers, and they can grow.
That's the thing. They don't think about the supply chain. They just think about Jimmy. And it was surrounded by whiskey barrels, and they're probably it's quite shallow-minded, really. They're not thinking that far down. They're not thinking about the quinoa grower. Do you? It's kind of it's an economic question, so maybe a little boring, but I think it's interesting, because looking at the prices of the whiskey, they're obviously more expensive than buying I don't know, Coca-Cola or whatever. Do you Do you get hurt by like cost of living and stuff like that? Do you read business magazines and roll your eyes and go, oh God, inflation's up? Because I can't imagine whiskey being before toilet paper, you know what I mean? Or fuel. And so, yeah, does that hurt?
Normally
you
it's
guys?
whiskey the night before, and then toilet paper is big demand on the next day.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, my bad. That makes sense.
So we do come first in something.
Yeah, do you reckon?
Yeah. Look, it does. It has affected us, and it has affected the whole industry. To be honest, like the cost of living's been tough, and we're a luxury item, really. We're not producing real cheap whiskey or anything. It is it's a premium product, and people have gone, well, I can't afford that anymore. So it has taken a hit. So the whole industry as a whole has slowed down, and that's global as well. So,
Yeah, no, it would be,
yeah.
of course. I think, I was going to say, oh yeah, so even though it might not be high on someone's shopping list, there are lots of health benefits to whiskey that I had no idea about. Are you like on top of all that?
No, please share a few.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I talk to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is basically my girlfriend, right? The amount of conversations I have with it. But I was like, I thought whiskey would be unhealthy just because I was like, oh, alcohol, you know, that's really basic thinking. I was like, oh, it's awesome. I would buy it. I like drinking it. I can't imagine it's the same as eating an avocado. But the health benefits of whiskey are like, it helps fight dementia, helps fight cancer. There are all like, this is a long list of health benefits. And I just wonder if, yeah, maybe whiskey's not, I don't know, maybe there's a lot of like ignorance around whiskey. People see that as just being like, oh, it's a luxury drink.
Yeah, I think there is ignorance around whiskey. You know, but as the cliche goes, everything's good in moderation, really.
Yeah.
But there is an misunderstanding of whiskey generally in Australia. We do have a bit of a immature palate when it comes to good whiskey. And most of the stories I hear, especially when we do tours, is, oh, I haven't had a whiskey since I was 18. I got really drunk once and then I haven't touched it since. Yeah. That's not the whiskey's fault.
The whiskey wasn't like, drink
me. You were
me.
probably 18, yeah. Your first drink, you drank too much of something, and generally in this country it's mixed with Coke. So rethink whiskey, it's just as complex as a red wine, and it could be treated as such. Sip away at it, enjoy it, share it with some friends. It is very light in profile compared to, say, having a beer after a meal. And I love having a whiskey after you had a big meal with friends, having a look at the whiskey cabinet and having a few whiskeys. It's the best way to do it. Even when you go camping, campfire, on the beach, even take a bottle with you. If you go for, a trip over to some remote island and you've only got a limited space in a backpack, you're not going to take a carton of beer, are you? You're going to take a bottle of whiskey is what you want.
Yeah.
Then you can share that among your friends. So,
oh, if you could have a whiskey anywhere, it would be, I mean, obviously school exams might be, but you know, you would want to take it everywhere. Whiskey would be awesome. Just like a little flask maybe in your little front pocket or something.
Yeah.
Just to take the edge off things. Okay, so you've had some bad luck. You're like, oh, I've run out of money a few times, have had to, beg and ask for money again. Whiskey might be hit by the economy. What do you reckon motivates you? Like, what's like the biggest, there must be something that keeps you going for like 11 years.
Yeah, I think it's the response we see in the consumers. Like they love our whiskey, and just seeing people come and tour the distillery and be in awe of something so unique here in WA. I've been in bars before locally, standing waiting to order a drink, and overhear other people pointing at our whiskey on the back bar in a bar going, have you heard about that whiskey? It's really good. I like this one, and telling their friend all about the facts, and I'm like...
Do you feel like Clark Kent and people are talking about Superman and you're like, that's me?
Yeah.
You take off your hat and you're like, guys, it's me. And they're like, we don't care. Yeah. We're like a whippersnapper.
Who are you? Yeah.
Do you, this is, okay. So I was like, man, you're so successful. That's from my perspective. And you are, honestly. This is great. But your partner is like a competitive record-breaking free diver? Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you feel the need to like keep up? Just be like, damn, she's doing so well. I have to do well.
All the time. And so she's more competitive than I am. So she somehow beats me at everything. So I think I've resigned to the fact that she's just going to win and be more competitive than me. And I'm more than happy with that, that's for sure. Because what she does is completely out of this world.
Yeah, I was trying to obviously learn as much as I could about you. And so like I entered that part and I was like, she's diving like 71 meters or something. And I'm like, man, you would use it as like some sort of like competitive motivator to be like, if we're going to have a dinner date, I need to be able to tell her something successful. Like, she's like, oh, I drove 100 meters. You're like, yeah, cool. Well, we made 100K. So, what's the... Oh, so just on the future.
Yep.
How aggressively do you want to expand? Do you have thoughts of like, oh, I'd like to open a second venue or... Yeah.
Yeah, we certainly really want to turn this place we're sitting into the brand home. So turning into a venue, moving some of the production out of it. You can probably hear throughout the podcast some background noise because we're producing whiskey at the moment.
Yeah. This is real. Yeah, this isn't
real.
like a CGI AI set.
Yeah. I'm not real though. This is
I did think
avatar.
that. Yeah.
No, we do want to create this create a venue in here, so restaurants, sit down events. It just means some of the production will have to move. So turn this into a venue and then produce an off-site somewhere. That allows us to grow production, allows us to grow the hospitality side of it as well, and it all kind of links in. But we still want to do the tour part of it as well here.
Yeah, the tour seems really fun. Yeah. What about like and I just might be off here. I don't really go into Dan Murphy's and stuff like that. But are you stocking in there, or would you like to do that?
Yep, we're in all the major
you are
retailers around the country.
Is it just in Australia, or are you in New Zealand, or?
Yeah, we've sold it in NZ, but mostly Australia, only because we don't have enough quantity. A little bit in Singapore, but mostly Australia. So if you ask it, you'll find it.
It must be hard. Like, do you ever think like, oh, I'd like to expand to the US, but then if the US has the giants, you might be like, well, why would I go to them? Then get crushed. Like, is that?
Yeah.
Would that be too difficult?
It's a very competitive market in the US. We've got a lot of fans in the US, but it's just so tricky to get the whiskey.
You might do
there.
really well. People are like, this is a really awesome Aussie brand. Like, I'm going to pick that.
Yeah.
But I just feel like if you have these like goats of whiskey, you might be like, you know what? I might just start here.
Yeah. No, we just want to be globally recognised for good quality whiskey.
I think you are, for sure.
And just have enough quantity so if people wanted to get it, they can. But I think Europe's a good market we get into. And Southeast Asia as well.
Yeah. And don't forget, matcha whiskey, baby scotch, and protein whiskey, which is quinoa, right?
Yeah.
Oh, have you got any new, just last, and this is the last question. Do you have any new whiskies that we can be excited about?
So last year we released, which is very new still, it's only barrel one's just come out, is a rainbow corn whiskey. So it's a heirloom variety, which is rainbow coloured. So the corn cobs are all multicoloured kernels. Super cool. First one in Australia. It's grown up in Kununurra by a friend Christian, and delicious whiskey. A lot of caramel and candy notes in it. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I haven't even had any of your whiskey, so I feel like maybe I might, before I drive away, that would be a smart thing to do. Just have a few shots.
That's why you've been saving yourself. You've been waiting. Yep.
Yeah. This is actually a big ploy to get free whiskey, and you're probably going to charge me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for jumping on. I really appreciate it, honestly.
Thanks for having me and reaching out. This has been fun.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything to say? Like, where can people find you on Instagram or even in Perth?
Yep. We're based in the city, so we're Perth's home of whiskey. So website, snapperDistillery.com, and on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah. And just reach out to us. Any questions, just hit us up.